How to Train Your Dragon but make it military school? Welcome to the Fourth Wing. This book has everything. Great world building, diverse characters, a really intense plot, and of course, dragons. So go ahead, grab your favorite little bevy, get comfy, and let's go ahead and dive in. Fourth Wing is author Rebecca Yarros' very first dive into the fantasy genre, and man did she kill it. She has a lot of other books, mostly in the romance genre. I will admit I have not read her other books yet, but trust me when I say they are all on my TBR. This video is going to contain spoilers, as I'm going to give an in-depth review about Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, so you have been warned. Fourth Wing is like if Harry Potter went to war camp and instead of using wands, they were learning how to train dragons. You also can't get attached to too many characters because they're all gonna die. Our main character is already considered the weakest in her year, so not only is she trying to survive the dragons, but also her fellow classmates. She does have a very steamy love interest who just keeps getting inside of her head, all while she's just trying not to die. This book has enemies to lovers, which is the supreme trope if you ask me. Rebecca Yarros does try her hand at a love triangle. I am not quite sure how well it turns out. The book is set in a military college, so there is a lot of war and politics and violence themes, and of course, just a little bit of spice. Overall, I really do recommend Fourth Wing as a book for anyone who is looking to either get back into reading or try fantasy for the very first time. Okay, we have reached the spoiler section. If you have not finished Fourth Wing, stop this video, come back, and join the conversation once you've caught up. First, we're going to dive into some characters. Rebecca Yarros does such a great job of developing characters in her books. She always has a really great range of diverse and interesting and fun characters. And it's not just the main characters, but the side characters as well. She builds a really great ensemble, and she's also super capable of introducing a character in such a short period of time and making you absolutely fall in love head over heels with them. While we're going through this character analysis, I'm going to drop some photos of what I'm imagining in my head while reading the book. Some of these I really just can't explain. It's what I pictured. So our female main character, Violet, she's completely underestimated because she has BBS. She's considered weaker and less than, not only by her classmates, but by some of the dragons as well. And she spends the entire book just proving to herself and proving to others that she is not. She is worth it. She is strong. She's a baddie. I don't know if anyone's ever run a Spartan race, but I have, and all I could picture was a Spartan race when Violet's trying to climb the gauntlet. So in my head, this is what I'm imagining while I'm reading the book. Violet undergoes such a transformation throughout this book, and it's so incredible to see as a reader her go from really timid and questioning herself to pushing her boundaries and trying new things. And it's so amazing to see her overcome every single obstacle that's placed in her way. I do have a couple of qualms about this book. First, starting out with her reaction to Xaden when she finds out that he's essentially been lying to her the entire time. I understand the sense of betrayal, but I don't think she understands her exact position because she takes his decision to lie to her so seriously. But girl, do you not understand who your mom is and who your best friend is? The fact that Dane can so easily reach out and touch you and see all your recent memories puts not only Xaden, but all of the marked ones at risk. The entire revolution is at risk if Xaden tells Violet, and he has to juggle those complex thoughts and feelings of, do I tell or do I not? And she just sees black and white of, you didn't tell me, you don't trust me. It's not that he didn't trust her, it's that he didn't trust the people around her. Also, Violet is such a baddie that she is bonded to not one, but two dragons, the very first time this has ever happened in this universe. I've never wondered what it would be like to have Jo from Princess Diaries and all three Powerpuff Girls in my mind at the same time, giving me narration and inner monologues. But thanks to Fourth Wing, I don't have to imagine that at all. All right, let's talk about Xaden. So Xaden, I jokingly call as the off-brand shadow daddy. The way that I was able to convince one of my friends to read this book is to literally say like, oh, there's Azriel, and she picked it up right away. If you're still struggling to get some of your friends to read Fourth Wing, maybe you market it in a way of like, oh, well, there's an off-brand Azriel in here, but Xaden is not off-brand. He's his own elite type, if you will. There is so much I can say about Xaden, but I will save a lot of it for my Iron Flame video. I will say I need more from his POV. A quick little sidebar is that if you have read Iron Flame and you go back and read Fourth Wing, wild. Absolutely wild, and you know what I'm talking about. There are so many little things that you can pick up on based on the information you learn in Iron Flame that's just literally mind-blowing. There is a very specific scene that I still don't quite understand Xaden's motivations, and it's when Violet goes to Montserrat. Violet goes to Montserrat because her squad won some war game, and she goes to Montserrat, and actually Mira's there, her sister, which is a great little reunion, yay. She's gone for 3 days, and Xaden shows up. A bit of context to this is that before this, Xaden was not speaking to her. They had their very first kiss, and he was being all moody and broody, like, no, we can't move forward, we can't do this. He kind of cuts it cold turkey. They're being really cold shoulder for a very long time. I believe there's a couple months, if not a couple weeks, in between this time period before Violet goes off to Montserrat and she's gone for 3 days. Next thing you know, Xaden, who has not spoken to Violet in all this time, shows up to Montserrat under this guise that, oh, Sigale, my dragon, can't stay away from her mate that long. It's very clear in the writing that, okay, that's really not true. Like, you definitely had something to do with this as well. You couldn't stand to be this far from Violet. And that's also when he first mind speaks to her for the very first time. So we have all this development in their relationship where all of a sudden he goes from, I don't want to speak to you, you can't be with me, blah, 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 to I can't stay away from you. Actually, I'm now going to speak into your mind. We have this really intimate connection now. I'm sitting here, I've read the book a couple of times by now, and I still haven't found a point from his perspective that gives the motivation to make that change in him. So if you've seen that change, if you know exactly, like you can pinpoint it in the book of where that change happened, please let me know in the comments below. I will go back, I will read it, but right now I cannot find that change. So Daddy Xaden, when I picture him in my head, like yes, a little bit of Azriel, there's the blue, there's the shadows, but also they talk about flight leathers a lot. So I always imagine Xaden in a leather jacket. And I can just sitting here thinking like that sounds a lot like Nick, the cool guy from Jimmy Neutron. So that's kind of what goes through my head whenever Xaden is mentioned. Xaden's dragon Sigale is the embodiment of Molly Weasley, but very specifically Molly Weasley when she's fighting Bellatrix Lestrange and she goes, "Not my daughter, you bitch!
Not my daughter, you bitch!"
Iconic, ruthless, protective mom. That is Sigale. All right, diving into the squad a little bit. First off, we meet Dane. Dane is Violet's BFF since childhood, but obviously the first year in Basgiath has really changed him being in the Writer's Quadrant. Dane to me is Gale 2.0. I will say I am team redemption arc for Dane. We are only 1 out of 5 books in the series. There is so much opportunity for this man to get a redemption arc. Call me a Dane sympathizer. He's just doing what he thinks is right. Do I think it's right? No. Let him mourn the loss of Violet, let him learn from his errors of his ways, and let him become a stronger, better man. Second chances, you know? So upon my first read of Fourth Wing, I did not let myself get attached to Violet's squad mates because everyone dies. People just kept dying on every page. So I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself get close to these characters until I know they stay alive long enough for me to build a relationship. So my favorites, obviously, from the ones that I grew attached to, Rhee and Riddick are just a pair unmatched. I also love Sawyer, but Rhee, there's just something about Rhee and Riddick. And I can't explain it. I don't know what Jimmy Neutron trip I am on when I picture Rhee. We've talked so much about this being How to Train Your Dragon, and Hiccup is just that like goofy sidekick almost, even though he's the main character, different story. But that is Riddick, the class clown. For the marked ones, again, there are so many characters in these books to keep up with, so I'm just going to talk about 4. We have Imogen, which I really did not like her at the beginning, but again, she kind of grows on you and you get to know that she's just has this wall up to protect herself and protect her family and her loved ones, family being the marked ones. You have Garrick and Bodhi. They're the same to me. They look the same, they act the same, they're usually always together. The difference is being Garrick is closer to Xaden and the same year, Bodhi is a year younger. But they're the same. They're also cotton paste and they're both Nick from Jimmy Neutron. And then sweet angel baby Liam. Perfection, golden retriever, golden boy. Rebecca, I still don't forgive you for what you did to that man. He was perfect in every way and you crushed us and you ruined us. I had to read that page over and over and over again just to make sure what I was reading was correct. What a testament to your writing style that you were able to make us as readers genuinely love and care for a character that was introduced on page 130 and you killed off on page 472. So we only got, what, 342 pages with this man, and he wasn't even a main character, so it wasn't a full 342 pages. And then the last character I'm going to talk about briefly is going to be Jack Barlow. Literally the worst. My biggest lingering questions about Jack Barlow is, what are his motivations? Because you see him on the parapet and he decides to go back and just kind of push off the kid behind him and then chase after Violet. And Violet, she, at the end of Parapet, embarrasses him in front of everyone. So that's a big enough reason, I suppose, to want revenge. Before that even happened, he was so set on just straight up killing her. Is he truly just a psychopath and just wants to kill? That's very valid. Rebecca Yarros is such a better writer than that. She's better than writing just a character whose only motive is to kill. I want to know what more is underneath the surface of Jack Barlow that made him be the way that he is. And I don't know if you guys caught this in reading Fourth Wing, but there is the scene on the mat where Jack and Violet are going at it. It's right before she poisons him with oranges because he's allergic. And she notices, because they're so close together, that he has a ring of red around his eyes. And as we later learn in this book, that is a sign of a villain. How did Jack become a villain? When did he become a villain? These are all questions that we have that hopefully will be answered in a later book. Quickly diving into Violet's family, we have Mira and we have her mom. Mira, very overprotecting sister. I'm imagining like a Katniss and Prim kind of situation, if I'm being honest. But I think there's a lot more to Mira that meets the eye when we first see her. Obviously, her motive is to protect Violet. She gives her Brennan's book, which is super, super helpful and plays a really key role in protecting Violet and helping her stay alive. But I still think that there's more to Mira that we haven't seen yet. And similarly, Mama Sorrengail. I think there's a lot more to her that we haven't seen yet. And I don't know if you guys also picked this up, but in Fourth Wing, you know, Sorrengail's, her signet is the weather. When Violet was crossing Parapet, it started to rain and the wind started picking up. Violet did kind of bring this up later, and she said that she doesn't think necessarily that her mom started the storm when she crossed Parapet, but her mom definitely wouldn't stop it. Her mom was also very, very keen on her not entering the scribe quadrant, but entering the writer's quadrant. And her answer of, well, Sorrengails can't be scribes, Sorrengails have to be writers, is just not good enough for me. Because once again, Rebecca Yarros is such a better author than that. What are Mama's motivations? Mama S, why did you want Violet to go into the writer's quadrant? What is happening in the scribe quadrant? What is happening in the scribe quadrant that you did not want Violet to see or be a part of? Miss Mim, I've got questions. And yes, I do picture her as Jane Lynch. I don't know if it's the real Jane Lynch or if it's, you know, Wreck-It Ralph. But again, black fighting leathers, the short haircut. Stay with me here, please. Also, we don't know who Violet's dad is. Daddy Sorrengail, we don't even have a name for him. We know he was a scribe. We know he was high up in the scribes. So hopefully more of that mystery is solved and uncovered in later books. And the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest plot twist of all is that freaking Brennan's alive. This man has been dead for 6 years and all of a sudden, oh, there he is. He's just been in Orisha, just chilling for the last 6 years. I'm sorry? What? I am standing very tall in my headcanon that for the last 6 years, Brennan has been telling Xaden stories about Violet, and Xaden has been falling in love with Violet through all the stories that Brennan has been telling him. So when Xaden first saw Violet going onto the parapet, already he was in love. I don't know if it's true or not, but that is what I choose to believe. Moving on to the different themes that we see repeated throughout the book, the number one theme that I think is really focused on is just this basic need of survival. You see Violet keep telling herself, I will not die today. That becomes her mantra. My stomach just growled. Did you hear that? Another theme is that writers literally cannot live if their bonded dragon dies. So after a writer bonds a dragon, that dragon dies. We see that with Liam and Day. That writer no longer survives. When Taryn bonds Violet, he straight up tells her, girl, you're my last. After you, I'm done. So now Violet's survival is not only dependent on her own life, but she has to carry Taryn's life. Taryn is mated to Sagail. That's Sagail's life. If Sagail dies, Xaden dies. So So again, we see this ongoing theme of survival, and it's not just Violet's life in her hands, it is so many people's lives in her hands. Two other really big themes we see continue throughout this book are the themes of loyalty and trust. Violet grew up as pretty much a scribe. She was priming herself to go into the scribe quadrant. Jeez Louise, I cannot say that word today. She's been priming herself to go into the scribe quadrant. In doing so, she's really immersed herself into the narratives and tales and tombs of the land. Violet has this need to be able to trust the information that's given to her. In Fourth Wing, you can see Violet continually going to her books and using her books and information, and she is the top of her class because she knows the history of Navarre and she trusts the information that's given her. When it is later revealed that the Vinin are real and this fable folklore that Violet's been told her entire life isn't real, all of a sudden her entire world truly flips upside down because she no longer knows, well, what is true and what is not. Her trust is broken, and now her loyalties are at lie because she does not know who to trust. And Dane is a really interesting character to dive in around this topic because Dane has this blind loyalty to Navarre and to his father. And because of that, he is painted as this villainous character in the story, all because we're seeing this story from Violet's perspective. She is that straight and arrow, she is what's right. And even though Dane's loyalties lie with Navarre, Violet's starting to question if that's even where her loyalties lie. Throughout the novel, you can see who can she trust, what information can she trust, and more specifically, what is the truth. All right, let's dive into some world building aspects because I love this very key thing that Rebecca Yarros did in this book when it comes to building the world. So again, Violet is at her heart a scribe. She was primed to go into the scribe quadrant. She's been studying nonstop with her dad. The archives are her favorite place to be. Little quirk that I really love about Violet that Rebecca Yarros threw in there that helps us as readers understand the world, her coping mechanism is to just state facts. She's crossing the parapet and she is just dumping all of this information on us readers. I found myself having to go back to the map in the front of the book. Side note, I love a map, flipping it back to continue in the story now that I know, okay, the place she's talking about, that's here. It reminds me of if you're getting stressed and all of a sudden we're just gonna sit here and just recite the 50 United States. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California. You never do that. It's such a relatable thing that Violet does in this narrative. And it's also such a really great world building technique as a way for Rebecca Yarros to tell us the world without telling us the world. Sometimes it did get too much too quickly and I kind of got overwhelmed with all of the information we were getting at one time. But that's when I would pause my read it again, go back to the map and help understand the information that I was given. All right, moving forward, let's talk about some of those plot twists. Starting off strong with Xaden pretty much lying to Violet the entire time during this book. And not only was he lying about the Vinin and the greater war that he's fighting with the marked ones, but he lies to her about her own brother being alive. Could one argue that Violet did not truly love Xaden without these parts of him being shown? He did not show her all the parts of himself, all the secrets that he's hiding. He just showed her the shiny parts, essentially. Follow-up question, did Xaden do the right thing? Holding back this information, he was protecting himself, he was protecting the marked ones, he was protecting the movement, knowing who Violet was close to, knowing who her mom was, knowing how close Dane was to accessing that information, and knowing where Dane's loyalties lie. Did Xaden do the right thing? Please answer these questions in the comment below. Let's start a little discussion about them because they are some hot takes and I want to know your opinions. So there's a moment in the books where Liam almost breaks down and tells Violet exactly what's been going on. He tells her almost what we think is going to be, the marked ones and what they're actually doing, and that Vinin are real, Brennan's alive. Let's imagine for a moment that Liam did tell Violet exactly what was going on. How would that have changed Violet's reaction? Violet reacted really negatively when she was bombarded with the information because she felt like she was lied to and had been kept in the dark and in secret. She thus took this out not only on Xaden, but also kind of on the entire squad because she knew that everyone had been lying to her at this point. If Liam had been the one to tell her about what's going on, she definitely still would have had that connection with Liam. Would she still have been as angry as she was with Xaden? Or would have Liam been able to express why Xaden had to keep it a secret from her? Questions? I don't know. Would this have led to a budding potential romantic relationship with Violet and Liam? Because let me tell you, if I was Violet, I would have hopped on that so quick. Let me know your thoughts to these questions below. I'd love to hear your words and your input on this. Overall, Fourth Wing, such a big hit for me. I absolutely loved this book. And you know what? So did all of my friends. It had everything. It was a fantasy world with great world building, a really fun, steamy enemies to lovers romance, and dragons to top it all off. I am scared that our lovebirds got together in book 1. That does not bode well for a 5-book series. Breathe, we are in this together, and let's see how the next 4 books turn out for our beloved couple. Overall, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, which is very, very rare for me. Listen, a 5-star read does not happen with me. So if your friend's in a reading slump or you know anyone that's looking to tiptoe their way into the fantasy genre, definitely hand them a copy of Fourth Wing. Also, this series is still being written. Go ahead and hop on the bandwagon while you can be there for the next book releases. Oh my gosh, the 3rd book's coming out this month, so we have 2 more on the way. Let me know in the comments below, what did you rate this book? Would you recommend this book to a friend? Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I am here to talk about all of our favorite fantasy books and give some really great book recommendations and unhinged theories. Be sure to send this to your bestie who you can't stop talking about Fourth Wing with.